Greetings again. ABC costing may be a repeat for those of you who've already gotten it, but just in case, this video will drive home the points of what ABC costing does, so you can really shine on Thursday this week. So we're going to skip through some slides that might be self-explanatory or don't help reinforce the points that we will make here. Here's an example we will go through a little bit. It's a restaurant servicing business. It's a food distributor, and they have a number of clients that they service. It's 5 clients. And they do have activities. They take orders, they package them, they deliver the food of the meat, fish, poultry every day. So those are the activities, and that's what they do. You have an order manager who has a salary of $5,000 per month. It's indirect because you can't trace it. So we want to allocate it. That's the key. Using a single indirect cost pool, it might be number of orders where you think, that sounds good. We'll allocate it according to the number of orders, thinking that that's a reflection of how much the manager is using his resource to service each customer. But in this example, where we're coming up with this single overhead pool and using orders, what we would do is we have 1,250 orders a year we figure out, and so we'll take his yearly salary, divide it by the number of orders, and we come up with a $48 per order to allocate his salary. But what if it's equal, each customer orders the same amount per year, which may make sense if they're ordering food and they're open 250 days a year. They're each ordering food 250 times for 1,250 orders in total. So they're uniform in the amount of orders they have, and that may mean that it's not a real reflection of the manager's time, which is his resource. It sounded good to do it per order. It sounded good, but it may not be a reflection of his time. And in fact, when we look at the time, so he's decided to take another look and say, why don't we track the time spent on each client rather than orders? Let's see what happens. And we find by discovery that yes, 2 particular clients are time consuming more than the others. And now we're going to reallocate based on hours. So we wind up coming back, even though we're using ABC costing, we do come back and find that hours is a better cause and effect relationship here. So we'll wind up allocating the salary according to hours, and we'll get a better reflection of the resource of the $60,000 salary used by the manager. And the result will be now we're going to allocate more of his salary to these customers here as opposed to the others. And that's going to be a better reflection. If we didn't do that, if we had just done, let's go back, if we had just done the allocation per order, each of these would have been allocated of the salary the same amount. So each one would have been the same. And as a result, for these 2 clients here, we would have put less of the manager's resource than is actually being used when compared to the other customers. We would have put less here because they are ordering the same amount, and we would have put more here than what is really happening. Meaning more time is spent for these clients than the clients here. So if we had only used the orders, which was the same amount for each client, we would have wound up allocating more of the salary to clients who aren't using up as much compared to clients that are using up as much. And that's what's called undercosting and overcosting with this indirect. So when you don't use ABC, you may wind up doing what's called undercosting when the clients are using more resources than we're actually allocating. And the opposite happens if you're undercosting in a cost pool. You have to be overcosting in that same cost pool where you're putting more costs to areas that are not using as much. And this may seem, hopefully this seems self-explanatory. It is. It's just basically saying that if you have a single cost pool where all your dollars are going in and you're using one rate, and that's what it means, a pool would use just one rate, so a single cost pool, you run the risk, if you don't break it down into its activities, or you don't find a better cause and effect relationship of how you came up with the rate, you'll probably wind up allocating it in some cases where it will be undercosting to the product, and if you're doing undercosting, you're going to wind up overcosting to other areas where you're allocating the rate. Let's see if this next couple slides explain this a little better. We're going to discuss what's called product cost cross subsidization. Subsidization. Let's look at that word again. Subsidization. There you go. So let's see what that means. If you're not using ABC costing, you might have allocated for a dress shirt, a men's dress shirt. You might think that the cost is $31 in indirect and indirect because of the way you allocated the indirect. Remember, direct's not a problem because we know what the direct cost is. So you want a $10 profit, you price it at $41. But that may not be correct. Suppose the true cost is only $30. So you're allocating $1 too much. Your profit instead of $10 is $11. What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is that some customers may say 41 is too much. It should cost $40. And you could make your $10 profit at $40. You just think your cost is $31 incorrectly. That's the problem with undercosting and overcosting. So if you're saying to yourself, well, what difference does it make on how I allocate? That's one of the reasons, is you may incorrectly price your product. All right. So we have three jobs when we want to make sure our costing system is as good as it can be. One, and this is what's becoming more of your generation, where we can find out where we can really recognize more direct cost tracing. The more we can do that, the purer our unit pricing, our cost pricing will be. So you go back and you figure out, do I have some costs that I think are indirect where I really can be with computerization, with better accounting, I can really trace them. Trace them, that's the key. And if they can be traced, they can become direct costs. The cost pools, you want to create as many cost pools as you can in order to refine how you allocate the indirect costs. But note, in case you didn't catch it, cost pools and cost allocation is only for the indirect. We have no other way of tracing it, so we create cost pools, try to find a common cause and effect relationship, and allocate based on that cause and effect relationship these indirect costs. Cost pools should be homogeneous. That means that in each they have the same cost allocation, the same cause and effect. Here's the language. So if you have more than one allocation base, you're definitely going to have more than one cost pool. Then they have costing hierarchy. We talked about this yesterday in our in-class example. Unit level costs. Textbooks does a good job with this. Batch level costs, customer level costs, product sustaining costs, facility sustaining costs. Make sure you follow the definition of those. When we do the ABC costing and we get more and more precise in how we allocate indirect costs using different allocation bases, it's called granularity. It's basically breaking it down into its various activities, its parts, and allocating the costs according to that more precise costing. Granularity is great, but too much will make you crazy. So there's a cost benefit to using ABC costing. We don't want to overdo it. All right, this goes through an example, which I'll let you look through on your own. And it really shows you that it uses activities in order to break down the cost. All right. I think that's about it. We would have gone through this in class, but it would just teach you how to utilize it. And the examples that we worked in class are pretty good. Now let's see what this is. Let's take a look at this one. Activity-based costing to compute total cost, profit, and sale price. All right. Suppose it's a lawn care business. You have two services, flower bed and lawn planting. Flower bed and lawn planting. All right, good. Now we have direct materials. We've got direct labor. No problem there. Then we've got untraceable cost, which is we got a guy who estimates the cost to our customers, and the activity is estimating. We got a guy who transports what we need for the job. That's the activity, transportation. And we've got the back office. What's going on in these analyses is what is it that the activity is, and it's the same for each one. It's just that one of these, the flower bed, may use more of the resources of the estimator versus the lawn care. More of the office might be made up for either one of these two products, and so we're really going to be concerned about the activity and how the resource of the activity is used for the different products. First, we can look at what if we just allocated the indirect cost evenly by product. So for the flower beds estimator, we would just split the estimator's cost between the two, and the same thing here for the transportation and the back office. And the result is we would get cost per yard of doing the flower bed, $390, $360 for the lawn care. So let's try to keep those numbers in mind. Remember, the direct materials here and the direct labor is going to stay the same no matter how we do the costing. Now let's reallocate, let's reanalyze using pools that'll have cost and effect. There's a slide for you. And we come up with cost pools. We won't go through the details. We don't go through it. We're just looking for the bird's eye view of what does it all mean. So look at this. We found that the estimator spends more time with the flower beds than the lawn care. The transportation, the same thing. More transportation costs. When it comes to the back office, more time is spent with the lawn care, and we wind up getting different product costs than we showed before, and we learn something about our pricing of these different products more so than we ever knew when we were doing it with just one single cost pool. So lots learned from it, and we now make better pricing, which is what will be happen when we're done with ABC costings. We'll probably look to see, do we need to change prices based on our pure understanding of the cost. That's it.